give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rikakudash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all Akim who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. All right, so today I'm going to be in 1 Kings 10 and 14, talking about basically the Solomon's splendor, Solomon's riches, right? Let's read it. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. And I had did some research in the past, and a talent is equivalent to about size of a man, a person. So you're looking at like 600 and, well, ironically 660 and 6 talents of gold. So that's a lot of gold, basically like you had 666 people line up and they were all solid gold. That's what we're talking about right here. All right. Verse 15. Beside that he had of the merchantmen and of the traffic of the spice merchants and of all the kings of Arabia and all the and of the governors of the country. And King Solomon made 200 targets of beaten gold. 600 shekels of gold went to one target. And he made 300 shields of beaten gold. 3 pounds of gold went to one shield. And the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. So, this was his military. His men of war. I mean, their shields were solid gold. That's how Jake gets down, man. Jake's stunting on him. Starting out with King Solomon, he was stunting on the world, man, at that time. His shields were just solid gold. You see. And it just brings makes me think that Esau, Edom, they have these things in their possession, because the scriptures talks about how the gold was carried out of Solomon's kingdom, carried away from they took all the gold. Whenever you have a battle in war, you're gonna have spoils. So this was long after Solomon, but when these heathen nations conquered us, they took possession of all these things that we're reading about. So let's read this, verse 18. Moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with the best gold. The throne had 6 steps, and the top of the throne was round behind. And there were stays on either side of the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood beside the stays. The statues of lions, if you could picture that. Verse 20, and 12 lions stood there upon the one side, and on the other side 6 steps. There was not like made in any kingdom. So this type of splendor, this type of beauty, there was nothing like it, To this day, right? Until this day, there's really nothing like the splendor of Solomon's kingdom, man. Solomon had Israel laced up, man, as we're reading. Verse 21. And all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. You know how they have silverware now, right? Man, that'd have been like eating off a plastic spoon in Solomon's kingdom. You know how you be at the house and you need to grab some plastic when you're on the way to out the house. Plasticware. Like if you're taking your lunch to work or whatnot, and you'd be looking for that plastic because you don't want to take the silverware, and you don't want to end up having that silverware um, lost or whatever. You forget it at the job or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that's how Solomon was with his gold. He was like he was like you know he didn't want silver wasn't a standard. It wasn't good enough. You know, imagine that eating all your meals off of spoons and forks that were just like and knives that were just solid gold. You see, motherfuckers be trying to steal your silverware or your not even your goldware, I should say. See, so you can see King Solomon how much abundance and rich and blessed he was. Verse 22 says, "For the king had at a sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks." Right? So, hey, every 3 years, they would go to Tarshish bringing that gold, that silver. And he had the navy. Solomon had that navy, which we've spoken about. It's even documented. Solomon's navy used to come to what you call the Americas now. And they would, they didn't dwell there, but they would get things and bring it back to the ancient world, because that's why, it says in Esdras, I think it's chapter 13, where, Arsareth, a place where no man has ever dwelt. It's true, like nobody had ever dwelt there, but don't get it twisted. Solomon was getting gold from the Americas. He was getting different resources from the Americas with his navy. All right, verse 23. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. Yeah, there was nobody who had wisdom like King Solomon, right? King Solomon had all the wisdom, the most wise man to walk the face of the earth, as it is written. I think there's something that supports that in Wisdom of Solomon. Yeah, King Solomon is in verse 7. This is about King Solomon. If you read, chapter 7 of Wisdom of Solomon, you read, let's see, it's talking about wisdom, how he loved wisdom. He said, I'll read verse 9, "Neither compared I unto her any precious stone, because all gold in respect of her is as a little sand, and silver shall be counted as clay before her." So you see, that's how valuable wisdom is. You see? And who has this wisdom? So that's why we're the high value men, brothers. The brothers who are sincere and believe in this truth and this knowledge. Because you can have all the gold in the world, but if you have no wisdom, then guess what? You're not going to be able to abide and stand in the day of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's wrath. All right? Oh, let's read 10. "I loved her above health and beauty, and chose to have her instead of light. For the light that cometh from her never goeth out." You see that? This is talking about wisdom. Let me see if I can find the... Okay, I'll read 17. For he hath given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely, to know how the world was made, and the operation of the elements, the beginning, ending, and midst of times, the alterations of the turning of the sun, and the change of seasons, the circuits of years. This is dealing with Solomon's wisdom. He basically, I've said it in the past, Solomon was literally a know-it-all. He knew everything, man. We're reading it right here. He knew about the beginning, the end, and the midst of times. And why is that? Because Yahweh Bashem Yahushai had showed him the end, the beginning, and the midst of times. The alterations of the turning of the sun. He knew about, astrology and the change of seasons. He knew about the different weather, the change, the circuits of years, the positions of stars. 20. The natures of living creatures. So he knew he was an expert with the animals. And the furies of the wild beasts, the violence of winds. He knew about the weather. The reasonings of men. He knew philosophy. The diversities of plants and the virtues of roots. He was a qualified, what you would call today, a herbologist, right? So he knew everything, man. And all such things are either secret or manifest. Them I know. And why does he know the secrets? Because ultimately, Solomon was a prophet, you know, during his time of being King Solomon, also as the greatest prophet who ever lived. And I know that the Bible calls John the greatest prophet. Yahweh Shai called John the greatest prophet. But we know through the Spirit, Yahweh Shai was, he's actually the chief prophet, which is the word prophet means teacher. So Yahweh Shai was the chief teacher, right? So, you get the point. Solomon knew it all, man. Let's go back to 1 Kings 10. And it's part of the reason why Solomon had so many women. Not only because he was the king, but you know how those women, they say, oh, well, they'll be saying stuff like, um, you know, an intellectual man turns me on, stuff like that, If you're a know-it-all, you literally know everything, man. I mean, come on. These women loved King Solomon, and not only his physicality, but also for his intellect, and he was basically like, the women desired him, you see? So it makes sense why he had so many women. Where am I at? Even he had the Queen of Sheba. He could have had her if he wanted her, but why would he deal with the queen, which that means whore? Why would he deal with the Queen of Sheba, who she was like the queen bee, sleeping with every man in her country, whoever she wanted, right? That's Solomon. What would he waste his time dealing with a queen like that when he could have a tender virgins? You see. Let's see here. All right, so I'm at verse 26. And Solomon gathered together chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the cities for chariots, and with the king at Jerusalem. And the king made silver to be in Jerusalem as stones. So the silver was like a rock, right? If you build your house, like let's say your foundation is concrete or solid rock, well, not in Solomon's kingdom. In Solomon's kingdom, he used silver as if it was stones, if you can understand that. And cedars made he to be as the sycamore trees that are in the vale for abundance. So he had the best, cedar wood to this day. I'm sure when you Google it, it's one of the top woods. One of the most expensive woods that you can get. And that's how Solomon had his kingdom laced out. So if you can imagine the splendor of Solomon's kingdom, just think about the kingdom of heaven. How much more glorious and beautiful and luxurious, splendid the kingdom's going to be. You see? Verse 28. And Solomon had horses brought out of Egypt and linen yarn. The king's merchants received the linen yarn at a price. Right, so he was dealing with Egypt too, because why? You got to remember, one of Solomon's wives was Pharaoh's daughter. All right. So Solomon, the Bible speaks about he had peace on all his borders, and it was because his father David had laced him up like that, where Solomon had peace and had time to build the temple and had time to be a philosopher and a wise man and a man who had many women. Why did he have all this time? It's because his father David had set him up that way. See, David was the warrior. David was the one who was battling and conquering all the heathen. So by the time his son Solomon was king, man, he had he had reaped the benefits of his father David. It's kind of like I was watching this little YouTube short, and it was talking about Donald Trump's son, Barron Trump, right? His son, those kids, that kid, I think he's like 18 now. By the way, he's like 6'8". Donald Trump's son is tall as hell. But anyway, he was saying how he basically given Donald Trump his props. His son Barron was saying, "Hey, we have it easy." He's talking about him and his siblings. He said that his dad is the one who established it. And I read the comments, and they were clowning, because they were like, "Oh, it was actually your grandfather." He meant to say his grandfather, because when you go into the history of the Trumps, the Donald Trump father, I think his name was Fred Trump. He was the guru in real estate and whatnot, and pretty much established that the wealth and the money and the success for that family. But anyway, Barron Trump, he's kind of like in Solomon's position. King Solomon, and don't get it twisted. We're talking about, you're comparing apples to oranges, because the Trumps are Edomites and Solomon is an Israelite. But just the point being, Barron Trump, he's got it made, right? Well, that's kind of how King Solomon was. He had it made because of his father's endeavors. All right. Verse 29. And a chariot came up and went out of Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. And for all the kings of the Hittites and for the kings of Syria did they bring them out by their means. All right. So basically, the point being, hey, during the time of King Solomon, Israel, the nation, it was thriving. We've never had a time like that, like when it was, when King Solomon ruled over the Israelites. He had it going on, man. He had all the riches. He had all the bitches. He had it, King Solomon was the man. This is makes sense, because when Yahushua, when he came back regenerated, reincarnated as Yahushua, because we know that Yahushua didn't deal with women. He was more just focused on the truth, right? And why? Because, man, he had all that as King Solomon. You know how many women King Solomon was popping? So when that spirit was reincarnated, regenerated as Yahushua, hey, man, that spirit, and through the spirit, he didn't crave that. I mean, I'm sure he had temptation, but it wasn't something that he desired more than the wisdom, right? More than the truth. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out. I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakah Kudash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge the Akyam. who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect.